Good afternoon, dear participants. I'm privileged to talk to you today. So, external observers have perceived Ukraine as a white spot for many years. However, this is the largest country in Europe that resisted Russian imperialism. And in 1991, Ukraine quit USSR and thus provoked its collapse. Lots of Ukrainian artists and performers sing a talk about the Ukrainian fight. Over the past 30 years of independence, Ukraine experienced three revolutions. The world was impressed by Ukraine counter-fighting Russian aggression. On the dawn of February 24th, Ukrainians woke up to the sound of Russian bombardments. This was the time when Ukraine was covered by all media. I'll give you my personal example. On the eve of the full-scale aggression, I gave some interviews to Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya TV, and the other media companies. So, usually, my emotional impressions were compared to the reports given by white men in smart suits. For the foreign media, we seemed naive local patriots asking for sanctions, weapons, closed sky, exclusion of Russia from the Security Council, and we warned that unless all this is done, the escalation will start.
Промовам і констатували, що Україна впаде за 72 години. Отже, що собою представляє епістемна несправедливість?
What is epistemic injustice? It occurs in case of collective knowledge and interpretation tools gap. It affects the ability to analyze personal experience. This happens in case of distrust. The knowledge is marginalized. Simply speaking, why should we listen to the opinion of Ukrainians? What can they know about their own state? Is it a state indeed, given the fact that Russia is a nuclear state being the part of the Security Council? Russia states that Ukraine is a failed state. Let's discuss the development of epistemic injustice. The cultural imperialism brings people to the thought that the center of empire is Moscow. Western academic circles typically focus on the elements of Russian culture that remind of the Western elements. This focus is funded by the empire, so we shouldn't be naive about that. As a result, the brutal colonialism of Russia has been often neglected. The largest republic within the Russian Federation is Sakha Republic. Its territory is larger than Indian territory, but it's still not in the focus. At the same time, the academic circles spread narratives about Dacha's dissidents, Baldwin's Autumn of Pushkin, Samovar's First Ball of Natasha Rostova, and so on. The empire's myths are also produced by means of systemic violence against colonies. Where is your Ukrainian Pushkin? This is the question from Russian defenders who try to protect us from Russian canceling. The marginalization of tradition is associated with the destruction of cultural heritage. It was clearly stated by Любов Цибульська. A Ukrainian writer and investigator of Russian war crimes, Victoria, wrote,
"The purges and centuries of unimaginable pressure are why you don't often hear about great Ukrainian literature, theater and art." Вікторія Амеліна попереджала: "Now there is a real threat that Russians will successfully execute another generation of Ukrainian culture, this time by missiles and bombs." Російська ракета позбавила життя саму Вікторію Амеліну 26
Victoria Amelina died in Kramatorsk in June 2023 from Russian missile. She was one of dozens of artists who were destroyed by the genocide.
Я вас закликаю читати про них.
I'm urging you to read about these representatives of the creative community. Please don't forget them. So what are the achievements? Did we manage to shift the focus from the myth of Russian culture to the reality of Russian colonialism? Did we manage to shift the focus from Dostoevsky's canceling to culture destruction in Ukraine? For decades, we've been fighting against the epistemic imperialism. This is the end of 3 years of war, and it's a time for a brief conclusions. Let's start with classical music.
Євроцентричній оптиці є показником хорошого смаку та інтелігентності.
The good sense and intelligence have always been goals of Russian cultural investments. On the other hand, Kirill Karabets, Ukrainian conductor, is performing in Royal Albert Hall. And as one of my friends from München writes, every time when I listen to classical works of new piano players, I have to associate I have to Google their names, and Putin. The main cello in this orchestra is Putin's son-in-law, and he helps with laundering his money. At the same time, Anna Netrebko sings in Vienna opera, but on her Instagram there are pictures with a machine gun, with Kalashnikov. Visual art. The Ukrainian modernist exhibition In the Eye of the Storm was coordinated by Ms. Katerina Denisova and Yulia Litvinets. It has just finished its global tournée. Pogomazov's Boychukist Cultural League artists were evacuated and exhibited in Vienna, Cologne and London. As an article in Event says,
after decades of being written out of history, the place of Ukrainian cities, Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, in the history of European modernism needs to be fully established and the complex identities of Ukraine's artists recovered. Уільям Блекер також не забуває наголосити на тому,
William Blecker also emphasizes the fact that the destroyed arts of work by Ukrainian avant-gardists and the tortured avant-gardists are not likely to fit into the Royal Academy Hall. At the same time, we have to share some other achievements. By the way, William Blacker speaks Ukrainian freely, and he teaches Ukrainian culture in London University. There are other people.
This is a rich, always enlightening exhibition, although I find it a stretch to define this epoch of Ukrainian art as distinctive from Russian. У своїй рецензії Джекі Вулшлегер потрапляє в усі традиційні...
Jackie Woolschlager falls into all possible traps identified by Tatiana Filevska in her article. She focuses on the so-called Russian Revolution, that's the Bolshevik coup, and the term of Russian avant-garde is applied to all artists from the Russian territory. While reading Woolschlager's article, we realized that Ukraine has lots of work to complete when fighting with the anti-Ukrainian stereotypes and myths. What happens to decolonization in the academia? When Western academic circle discuss anti-colonialism, we often hear Edward Said, Fred Fanon, and what does it mean? This means that post-colonial approaches are still studied from the standpoint of pre-colonial practices of the Western empires. This approach precludes people from understanding colonial practices of Russia. According to Olga Hilko, who analyzed international relations programs, curricula run abroad, all changes provoked by the full-scale invasion of Russia are fragmentary rather than systemic. If Ukraine features in the curriculum, it looks like the raw material, while the experts from Ukraine are simply ignored. To summarize it, I have to quote the recent article by Lisa Khromanchuk.
Cultural imperialism lives on, even if its carriers often proclaim anti-colonial slogans. It thrives in gatekeeping, with editors and academics mistrusting voices that don't sound like those higher up the ladder, while blaspheming those who have habitually been accepted as authoritative. "We've done Ukraine already" is a frequent response whenever you pitch an idea, text, or public event centering the country. Отже, переходимо до питання, що робити. По-перше,
Let's proceed to the question what to do.
не раз сьогодні сказано, варто інвестувати в
It is worth investing in development of sustainable institutions. The institutions aimed at centering the Ukrainian experience. In our organization, in Index, the Institute for Documenting Exchange, we deal with documenting this war for overcoming epistemic injustice. We're also engaged in exchanges. We rely on intellectual exchanges. We offer internships. We invite representatives of the academia, artists and performers, not only from Ukraine but from abroad. This type of our activity brings me to the next proposal, which I would like to share. Namely, the discussion about Ukraine should be centered in Ukraine. Support of Ukrainian voice abroad is definitely important, yet I believe it is no less important to focus on the effects of this genocide war in Ukraine. The we have to support those who decided to stay in the country or who is not able to do
В
this.
цьому напрямку сьогодні працює багато українських інститутів.
In this direction, a lot of Ukrainian institutions are working. In particular, as of Ukrainian Institute has organized back in 23 5 study visits for 25 opinion leaders from Italy, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Latvia, and other countries. Ukrainian PAN organization is receiving delegations within the Solidarity program in Ukraine, and that's been already the 17th delegation that is taken care of. One more example of focusing on Ukraine is the Ruda Association recently founded, and it puts together people who are researchers from Eastern and Western Europe, from the Baltics, from Caucasus, Central and Southern Asia, and you will hear Russia, which has its place there by right, so to say. Ruta organized its annual conference in Ukraine, and that's about the relocation of those talks, region to region, and about Ukraine into Ukraine. That gives our allies not only some contextual insight, but it gives them holistic knowledge. Just to understand what I mean, I have to travel back in time with you to February 22. I came over from London to Ukraine well before expecting the already attack. And then in February, I tried to organize, set up like a platform for refugees that I expected would be from the east of Ukraine. When I heard the first sirens in my life, I got together with the Lviv people to meet with them, and he was a tenant. I wanted to rent an apartment from him, and it was early in the morning on the 24th, and that guy was with a friend. Both of them were in uniform, and they said they had been fighting with Russia since 2014, and after meeting me, they went back to their compound, to their unit, and there were two guys, like on the left and on the right, and over my head. They were cracking jokes to one another, to each other, and it looked like, as we talked, that they have put up like a protection umbrella that looked like that they did it over my country, and I had no doubts about my defenders. They had some black humor, and they had some very, very much insight and knowledge that our struggle started not in 22, but much earlier, and it will end in a victory, our victory. That was the solid knowledge and the context which international experts were lacking, that projected Ukraine's capitulation in 72 hours. I would like to thank the armed forces of Ukraine. I would like to thank the people who is ahead of us and helps us. First of all, is the primary figure fighting the empire, and this is why we are here, that they are fighting over there. Thank you.